Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I wanted to make a quick video on this topic. And that topic is: society sees abuse between men and women differently. And why this is important to talk about. And I think it's something both men and women really need to push for a change. Also in that change, I do have something I want to talk to the men out there about. Yes. I know. Men and women are abused the same. But sadly help isn't given to men. And though what I'm going to say can and does apply to women too, I want men to listen up. Because it just might save your life. And it just might help get you out of the abusive situation you are in. Intact. So I was watching a video by the Ukrainian lens. And I know. Some guys don't like her much, like NAWMAL girl. Though they both speak the truth. And it's not up to me to say what their reasoning is for speaking the truth. All I know is what they are saying is the truth. And to backtrack a moment, I watched a video from another woman. I forget her name right now. But she briefly mentioned that her personal experience made her talk about such a topic. And that was watching a man that she was close to. She didn't say if it was a family member or what. But a man she was close to. She watched him lose everything. At the hands of a woman. Because the courts were in her favor simply because she was a woman. And believe it or not, there are women that are in this class, so to speak. They know men or are related to men that have been abused. Or taken to the cleaners, and they see what is happening as completely and utterly wrong. So they speak up about it. Which is their right to do so. And we need more men and women speaking up about this. But even more, we need these women. Yes. You women at the doorsteps of your congressman or woman. Demanding for a change. Because just talking amongst ourselves won't fix anything. It helps red pill people. But to make a true change, you need to legally do so. And that will require not just men but women pushing for this change to happen. But back on the topic. I was watching one of Ukrainian Len's videos. I believe it was her last one. Where she said she witnessed a man being yelled at and cursed out at by his wife or girlfriend in a hotel she is staying at. All for him appearing to mix up directions and getting lost. Now, both you men and women, remember when I talked about the narcissist do test? Do you remember the example I gave? You see, the narcissist will oftentimes love bomb their prey item for about 6 months or so. Now in the middle of the 6 months, the narcissist may say or do little things here or there that we look back on as red flags. But then we made excuses for these things because the love bombing felt so good. And we would second guess our gut feeling. Then at the end of the 6 months, the narcissist fights with us for no reason at all. And they do so to establish the sweet mean cycle pattern. And 2, they want to see if their love bombing took hold enough for you to stick around after they have a horrible fight with you about something meaningless and small. And the thing that narcissists love to use as a first fight excuse is either being late or getting lost. It almost never fails. This seems to be the narcissist's go-to first fight reason. So when I was watching this video by Ukrainian Lens, I was taken back to the first fight Susie started with me. Now to be fair, though this might have been their first fight, it might not have been. This guy might now be already trained and is knee-deep in the sweet mean cycle dynamic. All the sweets of planning their trip. And then out of nowhere, screamed and cursed at due to mixing up directions, which could happen to anyone. And should not warrant being screamed and cursed at. Now though this very same thing could happen to both men and women victims, there is a difference, and I will say it right here and right now. And though you might be the exception to the rule, it doesn't mean what I'm about ready to say right now isn't right. Because if you search your heart you will know what I'm about ready to say is right on target. And that is, women abusers feel more at home and more comfortable to do this kind of abusive behavior out in public. Because they feel no one will do anything against them. nor will they face any kind of trouble as a result. Now yes, there are men that have impulse control problems that do this in public. But the aware narcissist that is a man will wait in most, not all, but most instances, will wait until they are out of sight and away from ears that can hear, before he does this to the woman he's with. Because the last thing the narcissist man will want is the police to be called. Now, I'm not saying that men don't do this. Please don't twist my words. Because we know who does that. Narcissists. Do not twist my words. We do and have seen men do this in public. But if we are honest, we have seen this happen in public more often from women. So much so, it has literally become an accepted part of Western culture. The loud cursing and abusive woman putting her man in check in front of others, to where other women will high-five each other. Or both men and women will snicker and laugh quietly in the corner as this man is being cursed at for literally nothing. However, if a man was not even laying a hand on a woman, but in her face screaming at her and calling her names, you better bet your bottom dollar some tough guy would have got up and would have said, "Hey pal, you better knock that off or you will have to deal with me." Or some woman would have said, Mister, I want to let you know, I'm calling the police on you." But when the same exact situation happens with a man getting cursed at and hollered at, and even pushed or hit, everyone snickers and laughs. And they see the woman as empowered, and you go girl type of thing. But I ask, where are the tough women that stand up for the men and say, you know he can't fight you back because he will get into trouble, but why don't you try bullying me another woman around and see what happens? Or instead of engaging someone crazy, because I do not recommend that at all, call the cops and stay there and make sure the man has a witness to say he did nothing, that his girlfriend or wife was the aggressor. But that never happens. Why? Because we in our Western society have deemed abusing men is cool, right, and empowering for women to do. It's in most young girls' magazines, books, movies, and television shows. And if they grew up around boys at all, they know that even if they start trouble with their brother or cousin, and their brother or cousin tried to defend themselves, their brother or cousin would get in so much trouble when they were just defending themselves, and the girl was the one that steered the entire thing. This sends a power message and wires this girl's brain for life. You see, if someone steals at an early age, it can wire their brain to make excuses for stealing in the future, and to no longer being nervous or scared to steal in the future. This is why people will say, don't do this bad thing, because you can end up going down a very dark road. Well, that dark road they are talking about is the need and brain wiring you have now created to do this act over and over and over again. Well, you have many, if not most, young girls in our Western society being exposed to probably numerous situations when they are children, where they instigated something bad against a boy, and the boy tried to defend himself, and the boy got into trouble as a result, and the girl got off scot-free. This tells these girls, you will never be held to the same level of responsibility as a boy, no matter what you do, no matter what lie you tell, and no matter what happens. And if something like this goes unchecked, this girl, and most of their girl peers, will grow up to become ticking time bombs. And ladies, this is why many men today are saying most, not all, but most Western men are completely and utterly ruined. Because most, again, not all, but most of these women have learned and developed wiring in their brain that makes them think they aren't to be held accountable for anything wrong they do. So even if they appear to be nice today, with no traits of narcissism, all it will take is for the wrong temptation for this woman to do wrong to come their way, And that could be enough of a trigger for them to do wrong because their default programming they learned in childhood kicks in telling them, "Don't worry. You won't get into trouble." He will. Even though he's not really at fault. And this is the problem we are in as a society. And I believe these rules were put in place to bring us down as a people. You see. I will be doing a video soon about how Satan is building his army. And this is one spoke on the will of how it's being done. Let me backtrack a moment. I watched a video with Sam Vannon being interviewed by the Spartan Life Coach about social media. And how it's pretty much destroying people and society. And in that, Sam was giving an example about something. I don't remember what he was referencing this to. But he said basically people don't go around stabbing people by and large. Because there are rules and laws in place. That tells the average person. If you do this, you will go to prison. And prison is a pretty big deterrent for most to not act on such an impulse or feeling. However, as he mentioned, if you remove this law or set off laws and society's rules, you might see more and more people going around doing these things. To the point it would start causing a real problem in society. Now I know I probably missed some parts about what he was talking about. But this is something I've been thinking and walking to talk about for a while now as well. I've often thought, if we make it okay to just run around and hit people in the head as we so feel like it, eventually we would start to see good decent people doing this behavior. And thus their wiring in their brain would become screwed up, twisted and evil. Much like I said. How someone will say, "Don't do this or that behavior because you will go down that dark road." Well, that's why we have laws and rules in society. Because if we took away those laws and rules, eventually you would see even good people taken over by such evil and doing such horrible acts. And then it would get passed down from one generation to the next. And then you would have people without boundaries and they would be living in literal evil and chaos. Well, right now, most, not all, but most women live in such a world. There is no consequence for making a false allegation about a variety of assaults. If it's proven to be wrong or a lie, or she admits it was a lie, on rare instances she's jailed. But by and large she isn't. By and large she doesn't have to pay money back to the court of the man that was fraud or lied about. So making a false allegation is no big deal to her because she doesn't see the downside, and because of possibly making small false allegations starting off with "he stole my candy" or whatever and growing to bigger things. It's no longer a problem for such a woman to do so. She's been doing it her entire life. And society and those around her have rewarded her for such lies. So why should now be any different? We live in a world where if a woman orders a man around, scream at him, and tells him what she wants, and she wants it now, she is rewarded. She's seen as a boss and a half. She grew up watching other women doing it. She tried it out as a young girl and it worked. So why should now be any different? The same goes with physical violence. And the same goes with these female teachers having inappropriate relationships with their child students. Because are there some women that got real or somewhat real time in prison? Sure. Maybe. But most women that end up in such a situation, if they cry and claim mental illness, they oftentimes get an ankle monitor and psychological help instead of prison. However, if it were a man, he wouldn't be so lucky. He would go to prison without passing go. You see, we have a society that wires, literally wires young girls' minds, telling them if you do unspeakable evil there is no consequence for you. And you can project that guilt onto any man you want. An innocent man at that. And it will be believed. And once they go down this road once, twice, 3 and 4 times, and they see it works, they develop a taste for it. And it becomes who they are. And it becomes a normal part of society. And what happens as a result? It takes away from those women that are true and real victims. Because there are evil men out there that are mostly behind closed doors, mentally and physically abusing their wives and girlfriends. So what do? We talk about it loud, 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 and set the narrative to the truth. Both men and women are both mentally abusive towards each other. But when you see woman abusing, even verbally abusing a man, stand there with him if you feel comfortable. Call the police. And be a witness. Tell others loudly that are snickering in the corner. Would you be snickering if this were a woman getting cursed out by a man? And if you were a child, would you want this to be your mother? Tell the truth. If it was a man doing this, you will call the cops. So why should it be different because she's a woman? The second thing, and this is for the men out there, and women that are in such a mess. You can do this too. But I say this to the men, because men don't really know and are conditioned to believe based on how society works this isn't an option for them. If you are with a toxic woman, and you don't live with her and you have no ties to her, make up whatever excuse that you can make to get out of the relationships with this woman. No, you can't save her. Please don't try. And making up an excuse is a much easier way to leave a toxic woman than it is telling them truth about their behavior. Because if you tell them the truth, they might hit you with a false allegation and you don't need that kind of trouble in your life. Tell them you wish them the best, but you don't have the time to devote to a relationship because of school or family issues, and that they need to find someone good that can give them what they want. Usually some sort of excuse like that works because they think they have the upper hand over you. But if you tell them about themselves, they more than likely will seek revenge. And that's when they might say you hit them or did something even worse. So though they are evil, and I know you are dying to tell them off, it's not worth it. Get out and get out safely. Now if you are tied to this toxic person by way of property, marriage, and children, you're in a little more of a tough spot. But usually these types, if they haven't gotten violent with you yet, they are more than likely working towards that end goal. And the reason why they are working towards that end goal, and this is something that isn't 100% specific to men, as this does happen to women too, but it does happen to men more often, because of society deeming all women are victims and men as predators. These types of relationships are pushed to violence by the toxic woman because they want this violence to happen so they can have you locked up in handcuffs and start the divorce process, removing you from the home and away from your children. You see, the silent treatment that narcissist does, no matter the narcissist be a man or woman. They do this because they want you to lose your cool. They want you to stand there and practically beg for them to listen to you, as you pour your heart out to them. Meanwhile they read the back of magazine. They read a shopping receipt. Or they play a game on their phone. They are hoping you will boil over and try to take the magazine out of their hand, or their phone, or whatever, which will initiate contact between you and them, which bring you one step closer to getting charged with abuse. Even if it was an accident. Maybe if you try to take the magazine out of their hand, which is a bad mistake, they can end up with a paper cut. Or the magazine might slip out of both of your hands and it might hit her in the face. This accident is enough for you to be arrested. And this female narcissist is looking for this. They are doing this silent treatment to get you to boil over, hoping and praying it will escalate into you doing something stupid that even if an accident happens they can claim abuse and you will be locked up and the process will start of them destroying your life. Here's the thing. Know this. No matter if you are a woman or man dealing with a narcissist or other toxic person, their end goal is to destroy your very life and to get as much narcissistic supply and money while it's being done to you. So for you men, usually, in almost all of these situations, The woman is looking for her chance to put you in handcuffs so she can not just have the upper hand. Because society has given her that anyway. But so you will beyond a shadow of a doubt have no chance against her as she uses the system to abuse you. You have to know this. Now why is this important? Even if she hasn't struck you yet. But she's doing all these things toxic and evil people do. She does have plans in the back of her head to have you in handcuffs. And if you know that, you can legally and rightfully put things together in such a way. She's the one that ends up in handcuffs, giving you the upper hand, and a better chance in your divorce and a better chance at keeping your children safe. Now keep in mind, there's no guarantee for you as a man when dealing with the police in a domestic situation. But if you are married to or living in situation with a woman where it's not so easy to leave, and when I say not so easy, I mean you will lose a ton of money and or your children, then you probably are going to deal with the police one way or the other. Either it's going to be by her choosing with her control of things, or at your choosing with you slightly having a bit more control of things. It's up to you to pick. In my situation, a good friend told me, James, one of these days either you or Susie are going to be led away in handcuffs. Please be careful because I think she's doing all of this to set you up to be arrested. And took what was said to be very seriously. Because her behavior was escalating. And it was getting to be more obvious she was wanting me to respond hoping I would snap, or in trying to defend myself an accident would happen she could say was abuse. And away to jail I would go. Seeing and knowing this, the moment there was a time she clear-cut abused men with marks and evidence, I made sure I called the police without her knowing it because I didn't want her to place marks on herself. And to her shock she was arrested. I will tell you. I was scared. I was scared they were going to take me too, though I did nothing wrong. Because she was caught off guard. And how no chance to prepare for the police showing up as she had no idea they were called. And there was no marks on her. And marks on me. She went. So why am I telling you guys this? And you women that might be in such a situation, or you might know a man that is in this situation. If you are truly, and I do mean truly, stuck living with such a monster, more than likely the police will be involved whether you like it or not. You may show up to your house one day and find out there is a restraining order against you preventing you from going home whether you like it or not. And knowing all of this, because men aren't programmed from society to do such things. But knowing all of this is in your future. Why not make these things happen legally? And rightfully to the toxic person you are with. Saving yourself and your children in the process. And no, I'm not saying make up a charge or account of abuse. We are talking about them really abusing you and taking positive action. Maybe during a time where this toxic woman goes back to being nice. Install surveillance cameras in the house with her knowledge to protect against burglars. Maybe citing a robbery that happened a block away as your reasoning. Never, or if you can help it rather, don't do such a thing when you are fighting. Because they will become suspicious. But do it if you can help it at a time when things are doing somewhat okay. And cite home protection as your reason. And that this or that home got broken into around the corner. And you just want to keep your family safe. Also check with a lawyer to make sure this is okay to do so and use as evidence. Let the lawyer know you are an abused man in a marriage with children. Or without. Whatever your situation is. And you are wanting to get evidence of this abuse so you can get help and divorced without being abused further. And you want advice on what is legal and what isn't. Then don't respond to this woman's silent treatment. Don't pour your heart out begging for them to listen to your feelings. Don't engage them in their nonsense no matter how much you are boiling in the inside. This is so important. Because all it will take is one accident and you are in jail. But in my experience, not responding to a narcissist's silent treatment, no matter they be a man or woman, narcissist drives them nuts. And if it's a woman, They will walk over to you and try to smack the remote out of your hands if you are watching to television. Because they feel empowered to do so because they think the rules and laws don't apply to them. They will smack headphones off of your head. And the list goes on and on. And in the process of doing that, they might end up bruising, scratching you and leaving physical evidence of abuse. And if you have it on tape as well, send them to jail. Send them to jail. Send them to jail. Do not feel bad about it. Do not try to get them a lenient sentence. But the moment the handcuffs are on them, and they are trying to figure out what to do next and survive that situation. If they are hit with a restraining order. If they are hit with divorce papers. If they are hit with a petition of full custody and them asked to pay child support. All the while they are trying to figure out how to plea in their criminal case and they are going to anger management classes. They more than likely will be stuck. Again, there are no guarantees on how this will turn out. But know this. She is plotting this against you. And the longer things go on, the more of a chance you will get caught up in such a thing. And if they are the one that is truly and really abusing you, talk to a professional. Gain the evidence needed. And your chances just dramatically increased in you and your children being safe. That's number one. And number two, you keeping your home and your money. You see, even when men are abused and hit with hammers for shovels, they aren't programmed to do such a thing. To get the police involved. But it's these same abused men that either end up dead or maimed as a result of doing nothing. Or they end up in jail or prison and losing their children and all their money under false charges. Men need to be given strategies, help, and moral support, knowing it's okay to get law enforcement involved if they are being abused. And I think a lot of ladies will be in for a shock. There's kind of a new movement of red-pilled married men. Meaning married men that are waking up to how men are being treated in our society. And if they use these methods to prove their abuse and have their abusers locked up, you will see not only the mass exodus from marriage and relationships that has been happening in relationship from men to women, but you will see a mass exodus of married men filing for divorce, citing abuse. And if the wife is behind bars while the divorce petition for custody is being filed, you will see a great many of these women losing their children. And for the first time in their life, realize their conditioning. The conditioning they received since childhood. The conditioning that says, women can abuse men, and lie on them and get away with it. They will realize this conditioning was completely and utterly wrong. And this is also why, besides I believe the only 2 battered men's shelters we have in the United States, we need one in every single state and city across America and the rest of the Western world. And now is a good time, I think, for this to happen. Because what tends to happen is anytime men want to get help, or start a men's battered shelter, it's protested. It's protested so much so it can't stay open and it's forced to close. And then one has to ask, why wouldn't anyone protest anyone that wants help for being abused? And the reason why they protest men's shelters is if men's shelters were able to successfully open and operate, even more data would be collected about this problem, proving that abuse is a human issue and problem, not one based on gender. And then the lie we've been told will be dismantled quite easily. And those that get funding to put out material talking about how all men are predators and how all women are victims, would at bare minimum would need to share this funding with male victims of abuse. And they don't want to do that. We are in a very interesting time, people. If someone opened up a male shelter in an area where for sure protests will happen against it, I think sadly that might be a good thing. Because it will draw attention to the level of evil some people will resort to prevent another human being. That's right. Another human being from getting help from being abused. And then questions can be asked. The footage of such protests can be played over and over again. Citing this is the problem we face in our society when we are striving for truth equality, when it comes down to the topic about abuse, when we are talking about men and women. Now with that said, I also watched a video. It's a quick interview with Dr. T. From A Shrink for Men. She really nails it and hit it out of the park with her explanations. And she too admits, this isn't a gender problem. Both men and women do these horrible things. But society acts much differently. And there are biases to these behavior that do sadly face women. And it empowers them to think they can swing on a man because nothing will happen to them in return. And if something does, such as the man defending himself, he will be the one in more trouble than her. And to add to it, there was an awful video of a NFL player from the chief football team getting into an altercation with woman in a hotel. And this was talked about on a sports shows with a former NFL player, Shannon Sharpe, who is a black man, and his co-host, who is a white man and white woman. And I only mention this as other channels are talking about the racial aspect about their commentary, as racism does happen. You see, the woman said that this man that was in this video, basically regardless if the woman started it or not, should be barred for life from the NFL. That he should never ever play football again. And Shannon basically said, okay, I agree. It was a horrible thing he did. And yes, if he is to be barred for life, every doctor, lawyer, or whoever else you can think of should be barred for life from their jobs too. No job for you if you've done such a thing. As justice is supposed to be blind. To which this woman and the other man on the show fumbled over their words and had no real comeback. Now yes, it was wrong in what he did. But if you want to punish him to where he loses his career, every man no matter what should lose his career too. And the racial aspect that was brought into play without it being mentioned is, why are you so quick to take away a black man's career but you're not going after other men? Doctors, lawyers, and teachers. In the same way. That might be black. But they might not be. They might be this or that race. But here's the thing. It goes way deeper than that. Because violence happens to all races. All races. All races. And all genders. Did you hear me, people? So to me it's odd. How people try to make a man, no matter his color, lose his job. For yes, something awful and something I don't think is right at all. And even Shannon said, men, if a woman is getting out of hand, leave. Just leave. And he's right. But if we are so quick to say a man should lose his career over abusing a woman regardless of what the lead-up was, then why aren't we talking in the same way about women that abuse men, and women that abuse their children? Why are we as a society not standing up in the hotel lobby when we see a man being abused by a woman and saying, hey, I don't care what the lead-up was. There is no call for that behavior. And if she takes a swing or swipe at the man, whatever job she has, she loses it right on the spot. No judge. No nothing, due process. No nothing. You just lose your job. And no one will ever hire said woman again. But that's not what those that protest men's shelters want. They want a takeover. And the way you can see that is the slant in treatment. They can at times get away with murder, but if a man opens his mouth the wrong way, his life is over. So what are we going to do, people? What are we going to do? Because even if you are a woman, the way men are emasculated in our society affects you too. Because this lowers your chances of finding a good healthy man you can pair bond with. Because he's stuck in an abusive situation he can't get out of. Even if you think you don't have it in you to turn to the dark side and do what society tells you that you should do. And that's to destroy as many men as you can. I think you have greatly underestimated the brainwashing these puppet masters put out to the masses. Because they snare and they get the best and the brightest to fall for their mess. Well, that's all I have for now. Please see the link below for Dr. T's interview. And let me know what you think. Also no. I'm on the side of right. I'm on the side of both men and women. And I'm on the side of children. I just want what is right. As I believe you do as well. So let's work on it together, shall we? With that said, I want to thank you for your subscription and your support and Patreon. I do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to me. It really does. But we must keep on pushing for what is true and right. So let's continue to pray for wisdom. Let's continue to pray for strength. And let's continue to pray for courage. And until next time. Bye for now. And be good to yourself.